In 1593, King Henry IV of France made a promise that echoed through history. He declared that no peasant in his kingdom should be so poor that he could not have a chicken in his pot every Sunday. It was a beautiful promise, a political fantasy of abundance delivered from the throne. But while the king was making speeches about hypothetical chickens, the peasants were already eating. They did not need his promise. They did not need his chicken. They did not need the king. Because for 500 years, their pots had been filled by a different Henry. This one was not a monarch crowned in gold. It was a weed crowned in green. They called it Good King Henry, Chenopodium bonus-henricus, the peasant's asparagus, the eternal green. From the 12th century until the Industrial Revolution, this plant was the silent engine of European survival. It was not something you purchased from merchants. It was not even something you planted every spring. It was perennial. You put it in the ground once, and it fed you for the rest of your life. Your children, your grandchildren, forever. This is the secret botanist. We don't explore plants. We exhume them. Today we are opening the file on the crop that fed Europe for 500 years, then vanished from every seed catalog in America within a single year. Not because it failed, but because a plant that refuses to die, that feeds without permission, that spreads without control, cannot be sold. And what cannot be sold cannot be allowed to exist. The murder of Good King Henry was not a mistake. It was a geometry problem that became a business model that became a system of control. And the botanical evidence is still buried in the soil, waiting for anyone willing to dig. To understand why this plant was erased, you first have to understand what we lost. If you walked into a cottage garden in 1550, Good King Henry was the foundation, the anchor, the reliable friend that never failed. In March, when winter still gripped the land, it shot up thick stalks, tender, sweet, tasting like asparagus. The first fresh food after months of preserved rations. Hope in vegetable form. By May, it produced leaves, dark green, thick, tasting like spinach but richer. And it kept producing until the first hard frost. No replanting, no maintenance, no purchasing seeds. For centuries, this was the backbone of medieval survival. But the written record goes back further. In 77 AD, Pliny the Elder compiled his monumental work, Natural History. In Book 20, he describes a plant the Germanic tribes cultivated, a perennial green that Emperor Tiberius himself demanded as tribute. Most botanical historians believe Pliny was describing Good King Henry. The Emperor of Rome wanted it, not as a curiosity, as tribute, as payment, as something valuable enough to demand from conquered peoples. Think about that. The most powerful man in the ancient world specifically requested this plant. Not gold, not silver, a perennial vegetable. Why? Because 2,000 years ago, people understood what we have forgotten. Food that grows itself is worth more than metal that sits in vaults. Nutritionally, Good King Henry makes modern spinach look like green-colored water. In 1989, a study in the journal Acta Horticulturae measured the nutritional content of traditional perennial vegetables. The researchers were not expecting what they found. Iron content, significantly higher than spinach. Calcium content, higher than milk by weight. Vitamin C, off the charts compared to standard leafy greens. Protein content, unusual for a leaf vegetable, approaching levels found in legumes. Complete nutrition from a plant that required zero annual labor. Spinach, the vegetable we are told to eat for iron, contains less iron than the plant it replaced. The vegetables we buy in stores today are diluted industrial replacements for plants that were superior in every measurable way. We did not upgrade our food system. We downgraded it and called it progress. So why did it vanish? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is a geometry problem. And geometry, as it turns out, determines what we are allowed to eat. The murder of Good King Henry began in 1701 with an English farmer named Jethro Tull. Tull was frustrated with the inefficiency of hand-sowing seeds. So he invented the seed drill, a machine that mechanized planting by dropping seeds in perfect, straight rows. It was revolutionary. It made farming faster and more predictable. But the seed drill had one requirement that would reshape global agriculture: uniformity. The drill favored annuals, crops you plant from scratch every year in perfect lines. Wheat, corn, carrots. Clean, predictable, controllable. But Good King Henry did not cooperate. It grew in clumps, irregular, chaotic. It spread by underground roots that sent up shoots wherever they pleased. It did not stay in the line. You could not plant it with a seed drill because it was not planted from seed every year. You could not mechanize the harvest because the shoots emerged on their own schedule. In the language of industrial agriculture, good King Henry was inefficient. Not because it didn't produce food, but because it didn't conform to the geometry the machines required. In 1837, John Deere invented a steel plow. For the first time, farmers could break virgin prairie soil. The American Midwest was born, but perennial root systems were the enemy of the steel plow. They held soil together. Their roots went down 3 feet, creating a dense underground network that fought back when you tried to rip through it. Annual crops, with their shallow, weak roots, were easy. You plowed in spring, you planted, you harvested in fall. The cycle matched the machinery. The system selected for annuals, not because they were better for the soil, but because they were better for machines. Good King Henry, with its deep roots, was incompatible with the steel plow. It slowed the machine. It bent the blade. It resisted control. In 1900, the tractor arrived, the ultimate triumph of mechanization. Every machine built after that was designed to wipe the earth clean and start fresh every spring. Resilience was inefficiency. Permanence was obstruction. Self-sufficiency was rebellion. Good King Henry was labeled a weed because it slowed down the tractor. If the tractor was the weapon, the business model was the motive. In 1920s, the modern commercial seed industry exploded. Companies like Burpee and Northrup King realized a fundamental truth about capitalism. Perennials are a terrible product. Think about the economics. If I sell you a packet of spinach seeds, you plant them this spring. They grow, you harvest, they die. Next spring, you need more seeds. You come back and pay me again. Every year, forever, you return. That is recurring revenue. That is a subscription model built into biology. If I sell you good King Henry seeds, you plant them once. They grow. They produce for 20 years. Your children inherit the plant. I never see you again. From a business perspective, good King Henry is a failure. It solves the customer's problem too well. It creates self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency is the enemy of profit. By 1950, something remarkable happened. Every major American seed catalog quietly removed good King Henry from their offerings. Not gradually, simultaneously. Burpee, gone. Ferry-Morse, gone. Northrup King, gone. Synchronized erasure. No public announcement. It simply vanished from the pages where American gardeners chose what to plant. Every seed company realized the same thing. Perennials undermined the business model. Then came the final nail. In 1960, Norman Borlaug introduced high-yielding wheat varieties that launched the Green Revolution. The promise was simple, more food, and it saved billions from starvation. But the cost was hidden in the fine print. Total dependence on synthetic fertilizers. Total dependence on annual replanting. Total dependence on purchasing seeds and chemicals every single year. The Green Revolution locked global agriculture into a system where perennial vegetables had no place. We traded a plant that takes care of itself for plants that are on life support. We are now living with the bill for that decision. Soil erosion, water scarcity, nutrient collapse. Annual agriculture requires tillage. Every year you break the earth open and leave the soil bare for months. The American Dust Bowl of the 1930s was caused by exactly this, replacing perennial grasses with annual wheat. Perennials like good King Henry have roots that go down 3 feet. They hold soil together year-round. They sequester carbon. Research shows perennials reduce soil erosion by 50% compared to annuals. Annual crops lose 5 times more water than perennials. In a world facing water scarcity, we built our food system around the most inefficient plants possible. But nature plays the long game. While the tractors were conquering the fields, good King Henry survived in the margins, in the gardens of stubborn grandmothers, near old monasteries, and in the mountains of Switzerland. And now the vault is opening again because the rules are changing. We are finally realizing that efficiency is not efficient if it destroys the soil. In 2022, the USDA updated its programs to include perennials for the first time. Recognition that the annual monoculture system is not sustainable. And good King Henry, it never actually disappeared. You can buy seeds online today. And unlike every other vegetable you grow, You will not have to plant them again. They will return every year for the next 20 years. When those shoots come up next March, you will participate in a quiet rebellion. You will be eating food that exists outside the industrial timeline. Food that does not need a tractor. Food that does not need a seed company. King Henry IV's promise of a chicken in every pot depended on an economy. The other King Henry, the plant, asked for nothing. It just grew. If this file changed how you see the weeds in your garden, subscribe to The Secret Botanist. The next excavation reveals which plant was erased from textbooks in 1873 for reasons that remain classified. Some promises are made with words. Some are kept in roots that refuse to die. The files are open. Stay hidden. Stay independent.